There's something the church never wanted you to see, something older than angels, older than demons, older than heaven itself. A creature whose name was erased, whose story was cut from Scripture, whose existence was condemned as heresy. Tonight, we bring it back. Not the devil, not fallen angels, not demons. Something far worse. A being described in forbidden manuscripts as the one who crawled beneath creation. A creature the church labeled too dangerous for human minds. Hide the children, turn down the lights, and whatever you do, don't listen alone, because this episode is not just about theology. It's about the things the church buried, things it still buries, things older religions feared and Christianity tried to destroy. Welcome to the dark side of religion. Tonight, creatures the church hid from humanity. Section 2, the creature beneath creation, the worm of the void. Every religion has a creation story, but what almost none of them talk about is what already existed before creation. The Book of Job hints at it. Ancient Jewish mysticism reveals more. The Dead Sea Scrolls tell even more. And a banned Christian text, suppressed in the 4th century, describes it in detail. A creature so ancient, the Church Fathers referred to it only as the worm, but not a worm like the one in the soil. Not a snake, not a dragon, something cosmic, something dimensionless, something born in the emptiness before God spoke. The text says it fed on silence, it fed on darkness, it fed on the breath of nothing. When God said, "Let there be light," this creature fled into the cracks of creation. And according to a hidden commentary found in the Nag Hammadi library, it listens still, it waits still, for the end of time when the light weakens. Scholars call this mythology. The Vatican calls it folklore. But ancient mystics, they believe this creature still touches our world in the moments between waking and sleep, when consciousness flickers. Section 3, the two-faced angels. The cherubim you were never shown. Western Christianity turned cherubs into cute baby angels. But the Bible describes something very different. The original cherubim were monstrous. 4 faces, 4 wings, a body covered in eyes. Hooves of burnished bronze, that's in Ezekiel 10. But what the church removed is even stranger. In an early Christian text called the Testament of Solomon, cherubim weren't guardians of God. They were jailers. They didn't protect heaven. They kept things in. One passage describes the cherub with the broken mouth, a creature that could swallow the prayers of men. Another describes the cherub of many eyes, a being who could see sins before they are committed. Church authorities banned the text in the 6th century, too disturbing, too supernatural, too close to Judaism's older angel lore. But some theologians believe the real reason is simpler. Because cherubim weren't meant to comfort you, they were meant to terrify you, and they weren't alone. Section 4, the watchers who never fell, the obscure angels who escaped the flood. Everyone knows the story of the watchers from the Book of Enoch. Angels descended, angels sinned, angels fell, demons were born from their offspring, but what the church never talks about are the watchers who didn't fall. The Book of Jubilees, another text removed from the Christian canon, describes a strange subset of angels, the observers of men. They were not punished, not cast out, not destroyed. They survived the flood. They survived the cleansing of the earth, and according to the text, they continued watching. The Vatican officially dismisses the Book of Jubilees as non-canonical, but Ethiopian churches still consider it sacred scripture. A fragment found in Qumran lists 3 names: Peliel, the observer of dreams; Kizbel, the counter of days; and Piliel, the keeper of forgotten sins. These are not angels of salvation. They are angels of memory, witnesses, recorders. But here's the terrifying part. And Piliel's title literally translates to "He who remembers what God has erased." If that's true, what else did God erase? What history was rewritten? Section 5. The first demon, the creature that existed before hell. If hell has a king, then who was the first to enter it? Most Christians believe demons came from fallen angels, but ancient Jewish writings tell a different story. A story almost no modern believer has ever heard. A story about a creature older than Lucifer, older than rebellion, older than the angels themselves. A being known as Mastema. His name appears in the Book of Jubilees, a text once considered canon in early Christianity and still sacred in Ethiopian Orthodoxy. The text describes Mastema as the spirit of accusation, the prince of hostility, the rage of God made flesh. He is not a fallen angel. He is not a watcher. He is not a rebel. Mastema is something far more disturbing. He is authorized evil. Jubilees claims God himself allowed Mastema to exist, to test humanity, to cause misfortune, to destroy the wicked, not as punishment, but as design. In one passage, Mastema asks, "Give me a tenth of the spirits, to rule over them." And God replies, "Let them be under your authority." This means the first demonic ruler was not Lucifer. It was Mastema, a creature sanctioned by heaven. And then comes the line the church never liked. Mastema walked upon the earth before the flood. If that is true, evil did not begin with rebellion. It began with permission. Section 6, the angel who devours souls. The destroyer, the most terrifying angel in all religion. Most people think demons destroy souls, but the Bible describes an angel, not a demon, whose only purpose is annihilation. In Exodus 12, during the final plague of Egypt, a mysterious being appears, the destroyer. No wings, no halo, no mercy. Early Christians believed this angel wasn't just a servant of God, but a being who existed outside the hierarchy of heaven. In Hebrew mysticism, he is called Mashit, the eraser Abaddon, the abyss Apollyon, the devourer. But the most chilling description comes from a forbidden medieval commentary. He eats the memory of the dead. Those he touches are forgotten by heaven. In the book of Revelation, Abaddon leads an army of locust-like creatures who torment humanity for 5 months. Not demons, not fallen angels, not spirits. Beings specifically created to destroy. But here is the detail the church removed. A much older Jewish tradition claims that the destroyer is not under God's control. It says, he obeys only the laws of the abyss, meaning heaven didn't create him. Hell didn't shape him. He is primordial, like gravity, like fire, like death. Not evil, not good, just inevitable. Some scholars believe Abaddon is the closest thing the Bible has to a cosmic predator, a creature that consumes not bodies, but existence. Section 7, the creature sealed under Solomon's temple. Levian, the thing that was bound. Solomon is famous for his wisdom, but hidden texts claim he was also something else, a jailer. The Testament of Solomon, banned by the church, describes how he commanded demons using a ring given by an archangel. But one passage stands out, one so disturbing that even scholars hesitate to discuss it. A creature Solomon captured, that was not a demon, not an angel, not a watcher. Something older, something that should never have existed in this world. It was called Levian, or the mouth that wanders. The text says, it had no body, it had no eyes, it had no form. It was a living hunger. It whispered from beneath the ground. It devoured animals without touching them. It drained life from plants just by presence. Solomon could not kill it. So he did the only thing he could. He buried it under his temple. One translation says, beneath the stone of the inner court lies the mouth. If the stone is broken, the mouth opens. Several medieval theologians wrote warnings that the ruins of the temple should never be excavated deeper than 7 cubits because of the ancient prisoner. Archaeologists dismiss this as superstition. The Vatican, however, keeps a sealed document titled De Creatura sub Templo, the creature beneath the temple. Whatever Leviathan was, the Church still fears it. Section 8, the third race. The beings erased from Scripture. The Bible speaks of angels, of humans, and of demons. But some of the earliest Christian writings describe a third race, beings neither holy nor fallen, neither human nor divine, neither alive nor dead, creatures called the middlings. Traces of them appear in the Book of Enoch, the Dead Sea Scrolls, the Nag Hammadi Library. Early Gnostic texts, a banned gospel commentary from the 3rd century, these beings lived in the ancient world, not in heaven, not in hell, but between realms. One fragment describes them as those who walk but cast no shadow. Another says they are born of neither womb nor word. Some Gnostic traditions believed they were the first experiments in creation, prototypes of humanity. Others believed they were failures, spirits trapped between form and void. But the most unsettling source comes from a forbidden commentary. They are still here, unseen, untouched by sin or salvation, watching the world that replaced them. The Church erased every trace, but one question remains. If humans replaced them, what happened to the ones who survived? Section 9, the unwelcome visitors. The beings that entered when God closed the first gate. Narrator, calm, deep, heavy reverb, slow American pacing. Every religion speaks of creation, but almost none speak of what came before creation, of what existed before structure, before order, before God spoke the first command, "Let there be light." Hidden in the writings of early mystics is a chilling idea. Creation did not begin with light. It began with a barrier God erected to keep something out, a force ancient theologians called the others, never named in Scripture, never described in sermons, never spoken in any church, but preserved, quietly, secretly, fearfully, in the writings of Jewish Merkava mystics and early Christian desert monks. They believed when God formed the universe, He did not create it from nothing. He built it as a refuge, a safe room, a shelter from beings that lived outside His domain. Creatures not made of spirit, not made of matter, not made of light nor darkness, something else entirely. One ancient text calls them the pre-created, another, the first echo, and a forbidden Coptic fragment uses the most terrifying phrase ever recorded, "Those who remember a time before God." These beings were not evil, because evil is a moral concept, and morality did not exist yet. They were simply incompatible. Reality could not contain them. So God sealed the universe behind a gate of light, but the writings say, when He closed the gate, something slipped through. Not one, not two, a number the manuscripts refuse to specify. 9.1, the first breach. A recently translated Dead Sea Scroll fragment describes something extraordinary. Not metaphor, not vision, a historical memory. It says, when the boundary closed, they entered the place of forming. They did not understand matter. They did not understand time. They only remembered the outside. Some scholars believe these beings did not descend. They fell into existence like sparks striking water, unable to adapt, unable to survive, most dissolved instantly. But a few, a dangerous few, endured. One early Christian text calls them the forerunners, not angels, not demons, not anything we have a word for, just present, invisible, untouchable, unbound by physical laws, frightened by creation, hostile not out of malice, but confusion. The Church later suppressed all references to these entities because they do not fit heaven, they do not fit hell, they do not fit theology at all. Adu 9.2, the monks who heard them. In the deserts of Egypt, in the early 4th century, Christian hermits began reporting encounters with beings that did not match any angel or demon described by doctrine. They said, "Something watches us when the sky is without stars." They spoke of invisible presences that caused no temptation, spoke no words, offered no visions, and seemed confused by human form. One monk wrote, "It stood beside me without standing. It moved without motion. Its presence felt like a question." Another described an encounter so strange that church authorities burned his testimony. "It touched my shadow, and for 3 days, my shadow did not return." These beings had no moral alignment, no agenda, no message. They were simply trying to understand the world they never belonged to. But the most terrifying idea of all is found in a manuscript hidden in the Vatican's secret archives. They do not speak because they have no language. They do not appear because they have no form. They do not leave because they cannot return. 9.3. The priest who disappeared. In 1694, a Jesuit priest known only as Father Aurelius wrote a letter to Rome describing an entity that did not belong to the order of angels. He said, "It has no purpose, no message, no rebellion, but it fears us, because we are creatures of a God who shaped a world it cannot enter." 3 days after writing this, Father Aurelius vanished. The Church sealed his last letter with the classification non ad divulgandum, not to be disclosed. The official explanation, he wandered into the mountains. Yet his final entry remains one of the most chilling paragraphs in religious history. "If this being is what I believe it is, then it is not Satan we should fear. It is what came before Satan. What came before angels, what came before the order of heaven, what creation was built to escape." And 9.4, why the Church hid this creature. The modern Church never speaks of these entities for one devastating reason. They contradict the entire theological structure, because if they exist, creation was not the beginning. God was not alone when he formed the universe. Evil did not originate with Lucifer. Hell was not the first prison. Spiritual warfare is not the ultimate conflict. Humanity becomes something else entirely, not God's central creation, but God's protected creation. A species formed in a sealed refuge, kept safe from what lies outside creation. The forbidden texts say, the first creatures cannot enter matter, but they can observe thought, meaning they don't whisper, they don't tempt, they don't possess, they don't corrupt, they only watch, watching the world God built, watching the beings who replace them, watching the universe that no longer has a door. 9.5. The dark question. If these beings slipped in when the universe was sealed, are they still here? Do they observe us? Do they try to understand us? Do they envy us? Do they resent us? Or do they simply wait for another gate to open? One suppressed manuscript ends with a single terrifying line: creation will not remain closed forever, and when the second opening comes, we will not be alone.